Hello everybody and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program, where last episode we kinda got a colony set up on the surface of Moho. It functions, mostly. We can't mine with it, but the rest of it is fine. So what do we want to do here? Well, we need to be targeting Ike at this point. That is our current goal. None of these contracts are good for us. Science data from space around Minmus and surface of Gilly should be very easy to do. So space around Minmus, surface of Gilly, let's get those done really quickly here. So space around Minmus. So something like this multi-satellite machine array should be fine. I believe we have a thermometer on here. This will be kind of old tech, but whatever. Right, we have a thermometer on here? We should. Yes. Okay, so we log that temperature and transmit that back. Not enough electric charge. But that's expected. It'll take time for this to get transferred. And we've already gotten the data that we need. So that's perfect. We'll just let that finish up. There we go. And now we will head back to the tracking station. We need surface of Gilly. Got it. So let's get that cleaned up, and then we'll target Ike. And we're going to want to, I think, change our transfer stage for that going forward. But let's go ahead and go to our colony core on Gilly. So this will be fine. We're still probably going to use chemical thrusters to land on Ike. Although we could think about dropping the oxidizer and switching over to nuclear, but I don't think that's necessarily the best idea. Okay, so we're landing into Gilly here, or rather, loading into Gilly, and all we need to do is transmit back something. It doesn't really matter what. So we'll just grab this crew report, or actually we'll grab this atmospheric pressure scan, and we'll transmit that on back. Beautiful. So there's that contract complete. Now we'll hop back to the Space Center. And what else do we need, contract-wise? Well, we need an outpost on Duna. That's going to happen fairly quickly here. We're going to be targeting that after Ike. Ike should be very easy, in theory. We're just going to need a small amount of landing power. Yeah, realistically, mostly what we have is probably fine. It would, I think, require a refueling trip if we were to lift it off as is. That said, pulling oxidizer out of one of the tanks and switching to nuclear would help a lot. So we would go for our Moho colony, would be the Moho outpost would be the first target here, right? This guy. Now this is extraordinarily heavy. There's no doubt about that. And this just doesn't have enough delta V in this stage to get where we want to go. So we want to detach this. We want to ditch this Poodle engine. Is there a variant of a Rockamax size fuel tank that only has liquid fuel? I don't know that that exists. Let's go for... how's it spelled? Rockomax? Like that? Yeah, I think so. So that's a Jumbo 64 there. I don't think there's a variant of this that only has liquid fuel, because I would rather have this tank be full of liquid fuel and not bring oxidizer if we're going to do this. So what are our options here for a liquid fuel fuselage? We've got some Mark III stuff here. And then that's the Rockamax size there. Right. Not amazing options. We've got the Oscar C. Imperfect. Definitely imperfect. We'd be looking to run something like a Nerve. I'm guessing the Cherenkov is too long. That is extremely long. Indeed. So I would want to run something like a Nerve, and too bad it doesn't have a 2.5 meter size. It doesn't, so that's okay. This would drop the oxidizer. And hypothetically, what would this thrust to weight be over Ike? 3.77. Okay, so we'd need to get it there, right? This would be 1,056 delta V, which is exactly what we had on Moho. That should be reasonably fine. And then this would be only 811 delta V. That is barely a gain over the previous version. So the previous version had the poodle in there. Let's just get the poodle. But we do need to make a deep space version of this, right? So the poodle went in like this, and we can see that this stage here, which is currently somewhat broken, we would need to do something like this. Ish. Okay, it's not seeing this stage. Let me just undo here. And we'll get that back on this way. There we go. So yeah, that's a gain of like 50 delta V. That's not a lot of delta V. Not a lot of delta V at all. This stage definitely needs improvement in terms of its DV, right? No doubt about that. Hypothetically, as a dumb question, I'm wondering what it would look like if we replaced this, of all things, with a nuclear engine. So that would be, we could have that be a Cherenkov, but that's going to be very, very long. And then this would have to lose its oxidizer, which would mean that this wouldn't get fueled in, right? So we would drop these fuel ducts. And all of this would have to be dropped physically down, which isn't a bad thing. That means that there will be less chance that we collide. So this would need to get dropped physically down to be around here-ish. Okay. And then this stage would fire separately, right? So this would fire like when these side tanks detach. Not these SRBs, when the side tanks here detach. So it would end up being something kind of like this. This burn time is not tremendously long. But realistically, that might get us into orbit. And then once we're there, we can use all of this liquid fuel. So this is in stage 2, right? So stage 2 here, we can see has a delta V of 2008. But if we were to put this on Kerbal, and then, yeah, 2008 delta V here, then 757 here, and then 1056 here. That's interesting. Would we be better off dropping this stage and just using this stage? That's also an interesting question. So we drop this, like so, and we do that. That's not a net gain of delta V. Okay. So we'll put this stage back. The question now is, do we get into orbit with this like this? Now, this is a lot lighter without that oxidizer. A whole lot lighter. This does not burn here. Again, this goes up here and only burns once these separate. Like that. Okay. It's definitely an interesting design. We may have to increase the number of Parallaxes. 1.4 thrust to weight is semi-reasonable. And then as far as the actual landing on Ike goes, this will be just fine. For Duna, we're probably going to do a little bit of aero braking because, I mean, it's Duna. We can do that. It's going to be fairly convenient. But for Ike, there's not going to be any atmosphere, right? So we're going to have to do everything propulsively. It's an interesting question whether this gets into space. If it does, this should be more than enough. We'll have like almost 4,000 delta V here. plus whatever's left over in these tanks, if any. Let's go ahead and run a simulation and see how this goes into orbit. We're not going further than orbit here, but I just want to see how it flies and where the engine cutoffs are. We will be reverting this. Period, end of story. This is a simulated launch. Things are not quite ready. We're going to need Kerbals in here, but the actual colony is going to be ready to launch quite soon. I'm hoping to get the actual launch done by the end of this episode. We'll see. So, this will also be a lot more efficient to refuel if we need to, so that'll be nice. Let's go ahead and throttle up, SAS on, and off we go. We've got Jebediah in here as our test pilot. This is just a simulation, though. Let's see how this goes. A little slow off the pad, but we knew that with that 1.4 thrust-to-weight ratio. Okay. We may actually want to consider additional SRBs, which is funny, but it's a possibility. Let's go ahead and start our gravity turn here, maybe slightly late on that, but we want to go mostly up here. We don't want to spend too long in this atmosphere, not with this setup. Okay, so we're just going to head down over this way, adjusting the heading slightly. And we'll lock prograde now. Cool. So losing this center thrust here is definitely slowing down our ascent. We knew that would happen. But realistically, I think this is enough. Pretty sure it is. I'm adjusting our heading here again, pulling it slightly down. Okay, we have detachment in 10 seconds, so we should let ourselves settle back into prograde. This is not 1 second per second, is it? Interesting. That is definitely not 1 second per second. Okay. So the SRBs burn out now. And they're detached. Cool. And now we've got about 90 seconds of burn left in these engines. That appears to be going down at approximately 1 second per second. That's good. But it looks like we have enough delta V to get into orbit here. Which was the primary question at this point. Was, does this have enough thrust in its boosters to get into orbit without the assistance of the side booster? Apoapsis height is now 50 kilometers. We are going to, let's see, 67 seconds of burn time. We're going to head over to the horizon here. We need horizontal speed now. So we're parking in here. The real question now is, what does this detach look like? And the answer is, we don't detach until we're in space. That's the answer, for sure. "40 seconds to go here. And we are just kissing space with our apoapsis right now. So this is looking decent. It looks like we're going to have to do a little bit of circularization on this tank here. Okay. So that's noted. I don't necessarily love that fact. What happens if we were to drop this engine and have this be a liquid fuel tank only? That's an interesting potential option. Okay, so I think we could have gotten into orbit if we hadn't have overshot here. If I'd been paying a little closer of attention. How much delta V does this require? Yeah, if I hadn't have overshot, we definitely could have. So that's an interesting concept, for sure. So we align to this maneuver node, right? And we should definitely extend a solar panel. We're not going here, but I just want to see what it feels like once this guy fires up. Now that's only 2,000 delta V. A lot of that is because of the sheer weight of this up here. I do think that dropping this chemical engine, maybe even upgrading this to another Jumbo 64 tank, but having it be pure liquid fuel would be beneficial. That's an interesting concept. Let's go ahead and revert that back to vehicle assembly, and let's see how that feels real quick. Okay, so we drop this stage here entirely, right? This goes away. We replace that with a Rockamax Jumbo 64 tank. We'll make that be orange. And we place this here, but we don't actually require this decoupler. So it would end up being something like this, but we drop the oxidizer out of it. It definitely adds length to the rocket, but it's not that much length. Previously, we were about this long, so it adds like a Rockamax Jumbo 16 worth of length to the rocket. But this is now 3,296 delta V here. That is kinda huge. And what's our overall rocket mass? Let's see here. 734 tons, whereas with the previous setup, it was 736.523 tons. Okay, so it's a little heavier. A little heavier. That means that this thrust to weight is slightly lower, and I think that we do want to get some additional SRBs. What if, hypothetically, we did something like this? Actually, is that good where it's at right now? I think so. I think we just reposition these to be a little bit more evenly distributed. So like one here, and then one here, like that. So these fire up at the same time, right? So all of this fires. These four need to fire down here as well. So that's now 1.56 thrust to weight. And then these decouple at the same time. Cool. Something kind of like this. Let's see how that ascent feels. Also, I want to snap these guys down ever so slightly. I feel like they're a little bit too high. So let's snap that into place and bring it down one snap there. Cool. And we also have these hemispherical fuel tanks that are feeding into here. That's fine. They get used up very, very quickly. I want one more. Cool. That's about right. This is a very heavy rocket. Oh, this should be the Ike outpost. I think I overwrote the Moho outpost, but whatever. We're already on Moho. It doesn't actually matter. So we'll go ahead and launch this and see how that flies. This is another simulated launch. I just want to see how getting it into orbit feels. The last one could have gotten into orbit on the side boosters alone. I'm fairly confident in that. But I want to make sure that this will. I'm 99% sure it will. 99% sure. The additional SRBs mean that we'll be getting going faster earlier, which is a huge deal. We'll see how the detachments go. This is a monster of a rocket at this point. And we'll throttle up, SAS on, and off we go. Again, we want to punch up through the atmosphere as quickly as we can. We'll start our gravity turn somewhere around 75 meters per second, I think. This is much faster off the pad. Cool. Let's go ahead and start heading on over here. We picked up a bit of a rotation from that turn. I was able to get it under control, but it does exist. That's noted. Keep in mind, all of these have gimbal, so it should be okay. Yeah, we're definitely picking up a rotation. There's a bit of a rotational bias here. It might be from these not being exactly correctly positioned. It's manageable. Completely and totally manageable. Okay, allegedly 26 seconds left on this burn. I don't think that's accurate. We're definitely moving a lot faster. Like, a whole lot faster. I don't like this oscillation. That's dangerous for detachment. We'll see how that goes. Okay. 10 seconds, allegedly, until detachment here, but this is fake. It's not actually 10 seconds. We can see this solid fuel burning off here. I don't know. Oh, that oscillation is getting bad. That oscillation is getting very bad. So the question is, what is causing it? The detach was clean. And now the oscillation should be gone, realistically speaking. We also want to head over to the horizon here. Kind of going the opposite direction that I'm used to here. Okay. Stability assist, please. And the reason we're doing this is because we have slightly overshot our target altitude already. We're just going up to around 100 kilometers here, is what I'm doing. Okay. Just trying to get our attitude straightened out a little bit. Cool. This looks good. This looks very good. We're just working on getting as much horizontal speed as we can here. This is not going up super quickly, but I don't necessarily expect it to with the ascent trajectory that we took. So this is good. We're getting a lot of horizontal speed out of this. And I think this will be enough. So we're going to cut our engines right about now. Cool. At this apoapsis, of course, we will look to circularize. Again, this is a simulated flight. We will be resetting this. I'm just seeing what this ascent trajectory ends up looking like. Okay, so we can pull this back ever so slightly. Sure, this is good enough. Okay, we will head over to the maneuver node. That oscillation was scary. There's no doubt about that. I believe that having the thrust not be perfectly centered was what caused that. To be clear, it was clean once we detached the SRBs. So that's awkward. No doubt about that. Let's go ahead and extend a solar panel here so we don't run out of power. We're not actually in danger of running out of any power, but we'll just extend that solar panel on out, and now we're completely fine. And we can warp on ahead now and see what this getting into orbit feels like. It looks like we've got just over enough. And that's beautiful. I really like to see that. So we commence this burn, and all of our side boosters will propel us into orbit. Excellent. Now this is a little less delta V than I was expecting right now. And I'm not sure why that is, but it's okay. So I'm watching our periapsis height here. And we'll cut the throttle momentarily. Okay, overshot slightly, but that's fine. So we've still got 36 meters per second left in this thing. That looks like a successful ascent. The main problem that I see was that oscillation. Unfortunately, it is time to put a cut in here, but I'd say that the Moho outpost is virtually ready to go. This should be enough delta V to get us nearly anywhere-ish. Possible exceptions being places like Ilu. But this should be enough to get us to the Joule system, I think. Actually, let's do a quick test on that. So really quick, we're just going to put ourselves in orbit over the sun. Again, this is simulated. We're going to revert it. Is this going to be in a similar orbit as Kerbal? What is our orbit? Where are we? It didn't actually go. There we go. It was minimum safe orbit there. So we're going to need to bump this semi-major axis up quite a lot. We're going to take this up to like 4. Okay, we're going to take it up to like 10. Okay, like 15. That's kind of close. We'll go to like 12. That's a little too low. 14. 13. Okay. Awkward. 13. There, that'll do. That's close enough. From here, the question is, how much delta V will it take? That's exciting. How much delta V will it take to push this out to Duna? Yeah, like 1,000. Out to Dress. 2,000. Out over here? Honestly, if we time it correctly, this should be enough delta V to get about anywhere. The only major question is inclination changes, particularly Elu. And that's assuming that we have this in solar orbit, right? Which we don't. So getting beyond Dress with this build is going to be a little exciting, but I think getting to Dress would be fine. So we can do Duna, Ike, and Dress with this setup. That should be absolutely fine. Of course, we're going to revert that. We were always going to revert it. I just wanted to double check those numbers. All is looking good. This should be good as far as our setup goes for the next 3 worlds. For Joule system and for Elu, probably not quite. We'll see what we want to do about that. For now, though, it is time to put that cut in, so I'm going to go ahead and do that, and we're going to head off to Ike and maybe even Duna next episode. You can leave... Probably not Duna. It's probably going to take us more than an episode to get to and land on Ike, right? You can leave your offerings to the engagement gods in the form of likes, comments, subscribes, and bell ringings, and a very special thank you to all of the channel members for making this video possible, including Casserole, ALS Gamer, Kentuin, James, Shadowwolf, Mlohan80, Kentogan, Spartan News, Nick Smarty, Dimitri H, Punching the Microphone, Unisil, Kadra, Rogue Corvid, and all the rest. And of course, you. Thank you for watching. If you'd like to support the channel, you can click the join button down below the video, and as always, I will see you all next time.